Well, hey, welcome everybody. We having a good time at South by so far? All right, good. You can tell this is early in the week South by crowd because you answered, your eyes are all open, like the late nights and early mornings haven't completely taken over yet. So it's a good time for us to do this panel. So we want to welcome you all to this panel today, sponsored by University of Cincinnati. Obviously, if you're here, you are somewhat interested in the way that the workforce is changing and workforce innovation. And so we're pretty excited to have a chance to talk about what if we just forgot recruiting and focused more on designing a workforce. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we've got some industry leaders here from Microsoft, Kinetic Vision, and P&G, and they're going to talk less about maybe the work that they do in the spaces that you might know them for, and more about how that work's been empowered by making meaningful partnerships with universities. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And I want you to mostly hear from the panelists. So I'm going to let them each introduce themselves. If you all could maybe tell us who you are, the company you work for, and what would be helpful for them to know about your role to have the rest of our conversation make sense. So Lee Ellen, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Lee Ellen Drechsler. I'm a Senior Vice President at Procter & Gamble, and I lead our corporate R&D group that thinks about what should be happening in P&G's future. So 5 years, 10 years from now, what science should we be doing? What things should we be inventing? What are consumers going to be doing? And I tap into University of Cincinnati students for a whole bunch of that work because they are the future. So,
yeah. How about Jeremy?
Great. My name is Jeremy Jarrett. I'm the CEO at Kinetic Vision. I want to thank the University of Cincinnati and this awesome city of Austin for welcoming us here. I lead our digital innovation strategy and really lead the charge in identifying unconventional patterns. And I can't think of a better place to be than South by Southwest and Austin for attacking the unconventional. So thank you.
Yeah, and Ryan.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Rosensweig. I'm with Microsoft. It's definitely an honor to share the stage with companies like Procter & Gamble, universities like University of Cincinnati, and just really innovative software-driven companies like Kinetic Vision. A lot of our focus is on how we help groups like this do more, right? And I lead our work in cloud and AI platforms within healthcare. Healthcare is certainly an industry, as we all know, where more means a whole lot. And so how we approach that and how you bring the folks of the future that are going to drive better outcomes, that's part of what we're here for too. And we're proud to be a member of the 1819 Innovation Center, where we have an AI learning lab and engage directly with students and partners like these.
Nice. Well, yeah, and you all are going to get a chance to hear about some of these places like the 1819 Innovation Center and the Digital Accelerator P&G. So we'll dive in and all that. And I just want to mention too that in addition to us here on stage, there's a nice large contingent from the University of Cincinnati here today. So you'll see them over here. And after today's conversation, if there's anything that you hear that's interesting to you and you feel like you'd like to dig in further on, we'd love to have you join us right across the hall at our next lab and talk to you more about anything that this conversation sparks. But with that in mind, I'm going to stop talking and let you guys do more of the talking. So, Leon, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about, there's been a recent project you worked on, where you were launching a new brand. And I know that you've got plenty of in-house talent. You guys build billion-dollar brands all the time. But this particular project, you chose to lean pretty heavily into working with students. Tell us a little bit about that and maybe why even.
yeah, so, one of the things people always say about big companies like P&G is you can't disrupt yourself. But we have to disrupt ourselves, otherwise we won't be around for the kind of length of time we have been. So that's what my group does, is really kind of pokes the bear and builds things that are unexpected and things that consumers will love that don't look at all like what we sell now. So the new product that I've spent about 10 years of my life developing is a super lightweight laundry detergent that's the most sustainable, the best you can use in cold water. It does things that like no other one can do. Looks super simple, and it absolutely isn't. And when we brought the idea to the bigger P&G, it was pretty hard for people to imagine that it could work like it works or look like it looks. And so we really had to step back and go, how can we experiment small? How can we almost be a startup within the company? And maybe it isn't part of the big brand machine yet, but we do have to build this thing and do the engineering and talk to consumers and understand like how people are going to do their laundry in the future. So that's when I absolutely love the co-op program at University of Cincinnati, because we could have students from design, from engineering, from cognitive science, finance, all the things you would need to build a new business. And they really don't know that things aren't possible at all yet. So you can bring them, but not just for a summer, but bring them every other semester for like 4 years. And, we knew we would keep building this thing and even create a little learning brand and a direct-to-consumer business that was self-sustaining enough to keep learning. But that's not what P&G normally does. So our ability to bring, literally, I haven't counted, but probably over 50 co-ops to work on what amounted to this in the end on one of our big brands, but to kind of learn and market along the way, amazing. Yeah. And they got the experience of what it felt like to do all the things you need to do to create the whole business model.
Okay.
So it's fun, amazing people. And I'll tell you, even sophomores, when you drop them in a project like this and they know they have kind of freedom to learn and a lot of responsibility, they do way better than you would expect for someone with a year or so of college.
Well, so maybe let's even move back and unpack a little bit. What you said, co-op. Maybe not everybody's even familiar with what that is.
Yeah.
Well, these co-ops played a big part in this project. Maybe even talk about how did you find them? What is a co-op?
Yeah,
like
so I think we were all co-ops.
Take it for granted.
Inside the baseball, right?
Yeah, so specifically at University of Cincinnati, it is a required part of your program. So if you enter as an engineer like I did, you commit to 5 years instead of the normal 4, and every other semester after your freshman year, you either go back to the same company or perhaps a different one, but you're rotating semester by semester, school work, for your whole education, which I think is an amazing way, not just to get your occasional summer experience, but you just more consistently are in the business world and learn that way.
Okay.
So
over 10 years, this is something you're thinking about every day, every night.
Yeah.
But you also had some undergraduate students who are working on it with you.
yeah, some of them are employed by us now.
Okay.
In the Tide brand. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know you all were co-ops in your time, and does this story resonate? Is this something that you probably had happen as well? Maybe it wasn't a detergent that you talked about or thought about for 10 years, but there's been co-ops involved in your companies, right?
Yeah, there have been. I started working for Kinetic Vision 35 years ago as an undergraduate co-op, and now I'm the CEO. So that is a fantastic journey for me. And something I don't think we think about is that access to education isn't the same for everybody, and a required co-op program provides access to students like me who may not have been able to go to college if we didn't have access to be able to make money every other semester, or those of us with really short attention spans who, kind of get sick of school after a semester and want to do something different. So, and I think, one of the important pieces is this concept of, within the university, you have very divergent thought patterns. We have to explore things, get them out of our system. I will tell you, as a commercial entity and trying to drive towards some success, divergent patterns drive you nuts. And so you want to really converge on a solution, right, to give to a customer, to launch. And I think a program like this really integrates those. My job is to de-silo these divergent thinkers from my convergent thinkers and really get them close together. And so that's something that just over time, over decades, I've realized, wow, this is a benefit of these programs. And it's not just, the co-op program, but also, the university keeps expanding, I'll say, these programs to integrate businesses at the university level. So, through being involved in the 1819 Innovation Center, we're starting to bring companies back to the university as opposed to just flinging our students out there to the companies. So some very interesting things going on.
Yeah. No, Brian.
Yeah, I think that resonates with me. I mean, certainly my experience as a co-op, I think that during my time, it's what a lot of students experience today. There was a tumultuous economy. And so what my co-op looked like, started at a large enterprise company and learned a lot from something that started as a family business. And then I started a company during another semester that I did that. And so the flexibility of like, I'm now on the West Coast. And so starting companies is a big thing. There's incubations, but the idea that you have this rotation and what you can learn at an incredible place like yours or what you learn on your own and your own ambition, it definitely holds its weight. And I know in me, I work with students all the time, not as fortunate as you all are perhaps sometimes to work with a co-op program. And you finish the semester and you just say, you were just getting so good. I wish you could come back. And so I think that sense of that relationship, that there's this exchange. We're often finding people at Microsoft who, sometimes the greatest value is that they've worked for a startup or they worked for another technology company. That perspective, it brings so much value to our teams, just as it sounds it does to yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so specific, now we kind of have an understanding of what co-op is. What was it, though, that for a project like this made having undergraduate students being a part of the team instrumental? Because, again, you've got plenty of in-house talent, right? But you chose to do this and you chose to keep doing it. What was the unlock there?
I think one thing is when you're developing for the future, in this particular one, we were really thinking about how can something be the most sustainable and the best performing? And what does that mean? What does sustainable really mean to a person who just wants to get their laundry done, for instance? I think having people that are, less jaded, gonna be the future we're designing for, is like, we can't get that easily. You can go talk to people in like focus groups or something, but when you have the people who are that future just rolling up their sleeves and actually building the prototypes and, building the way you're gonna talk about it in the market, even building the machine, it's way different because they're just, just like I was immersed for all those years, they're now immersed. And so you've just got the perspective for like fresh and firsthand.
Okay.
It's hard to describe, but it's just very different because they'll tell you if it's stupid. Like, they're like, you're not there, you don't have it, you should do this.
Okay.
Which if you were interviewing a consumer, they would never tell you because you're kind of paying them for the interview, or,
Yeah.
Whereas these folks are really ingrained, particularly when they come back for the second or third or fourth time and they, each other.
Yeah. So let's say there weren't co-ops on this project. What do you think would have looked different? Like if you had to do this without the help of co-ops?
I don't think it would exist. We would have made maybe a better pond, or we would have made something fairly incremental, maybe. So I really, honestly, when I see these kinds of disruptions don't come around every day, but when you get one, which is maybe 3 or 4 times in a career for people like us, you staff it differently. You really go hard on, co-ops and designers and people who can think very differently and are pretty frank about it. So yeah, it's this really special atmosphere that you don't get in any big company every day.
Well, it sounds like, too, you're finding that this is an opportunity by working with these students who are still maybe more open-minded. They're not quite as adept at corporate politics, and maybe that's to their advantage. They can give you that raw, unfiltered feedback and bring ideas that might have been too scary for somebody who works in the company to bring.
Yeah, when they're shopping differently, they're questioning things that maybe we don't question anymore. So you do get some not necessarily middle of the road perspective. So you have to be, reasonable about, does this represent, all the billions of people we want to design for? But I think having, especially those really edge perspectives, is something we should never ignore, and you should somehow find a way to integrate. And that's what students bring that.
Yeah.
That's who they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, on a similar note, kind of moving away from necessarily the Tide project and specifically, but for all of you, it does sound like working with these students who, again, have those fringe thoughts or just think differently, they're tapping into things that maybe some of us have forgotten about or have gotten used to, right? And I think a popular area to try and get students involved in is anything digital, anything technology related, because I don't want to typecast everyone over the age of 30, but there becomes this like curve of how much more new tech adoption you're willing to have in your life and things like that. So, I mean, Jeremy, I think this has set Kinetic Vision up probably, if I'm thinking about the amount of digital work you're doing, maybe you want to talk a little bit about some of the digital twins and things like that and how working with the university is unlocking some things there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lee-Ellen, you're driving innovation from the inside, and as a consulting firm, we're driving it from the outside. And so when we look at technology shifts, we'll say that one is artificial intelligence and digital twins. This is a huge unlock for manufacturers. Manufacturers have been doing things the same way for decades or hundreds of years. Adopting new technology, and Microsoft knows this, there's an adoption curve. You have your innovators who are like right at the beginning, and then your fast followers. And for us, to make real change, we have to compress that adoption curve. We have to really shrink it, because otherwise you're really looking at 15 years for adoption of a new technology like digital twins. That's really the speed at which things change if you don't do something. And so when we start looking at engaging students in the undergrad and the high school age, these elastic brains are ready to latch onto anything new. And if we can start teaching them these tools early and get them work experience and get these divergent and convergent thinkers together really early in their academic careers and start blurring these lines, then what they're going to do is they now become part of the workforce that companies like Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, and Kinetic Vision then hire. And now they're there, they're doing it, it's natural for them, and we're compressing that adoption curve. And so that's what's really important for us, because the friction of adopting new technology is something that is, it frankly slows our business down. And so if we can cut down any friction layer by just building into culture, that's really helpful for us.
And so the culture already exists because you're building it from within, but having the new folks come in and they almost seem like little secret agents and come in with a bunch of new ideas and infuse that in, and then some of it stays and permeates and lasts. And yeah.
Yep.
You look like you had more to say on that, but
I was thinking about, because I think it's maybe simplistic to say, we hope the students come in and kind of are AI savvy and teach us to be faster or whatever. I've seen it more two-way than that. I think that, frankly, most people in big companies are fairly digitally savvy, but we're not as elastic. And even if you come in with the tool of today as a new graduate, this is still going to be out of date by the time you graduate almost. So I think having co-op students kind of retrain us to be more elastic, even if you've been there many years, that's the other kind of infusion of not just digital, but digital plus being prepared for the 20 other ways it's going to change in the next.
Yeah, I think the way that it works, I think there's value in naive innovation, being new to something and driving that forwards, and certainly that came out in some of your product offerings. But I think in adapting to new technology as well, there's discovering where it really accelerates you and where it really helps accelerate you in the context of where you want to work or within your career. And so I think in the same way as a leader or somebody hiring, you have a network, you have relationships that are in place to be able to do it. But as a co-op, you're trying to explore both how you're applying what you learned and how you want to be yourself to be perceived as a professional. And technology is a great way to experiment with some of that. And I think, too, it also relieves some of the pressure that I think that higher education is tremendously important, because you not only are you kind of an apprentice as a student, but with faculty, you're in a safe space as an ability to learn. And, technology shouldn't always be in competition with that, right? It should be something that enhances it. And so I think this experience that a student has, being able to learn from faculty and then come into a professional environment and see the role that technology can play and then bring some of those foundational questions as they return is really critical to both improving the professional, but also improving how we learn.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, you obviously digital first with all of this, but it's a manufacturing environment, correct? You're not just thinking about what exists on a screen. There's big moving pieces and robots and things involved, right? How does that environment look and feel different when you've got, again, these students who are coming out of a elastic brain kind of mentality?
Yeah, so, our facility is set up to be both digital and physical. And that also mirrors what the university does, which is great, that we're able to move students between environments very seamlessly. And so when you talk about something like a digital twin of a manufacturing floor, you can't just make it all up digitally. It has to be validated, okay? Your digital tool has to be validated with how things operate physically. And so having students very early get used to traveling between those worlds really seamlessly and understanding when they see something that doesn't look right digitally, they're able to just go test it physically. And so, a lot of, what I see valuable about these tracks is the de-siloing. You will get curmudgeoned engineers that are either in the manufacturing floor or in the simulation world, and they truly believe in their approach, and they're a little unwilling to, cross the aisle. And so having them have exposure to both and really move seamlessly in between the two. And the reality is that as we get older, we're reluctant to change. And so the younger they are, when they don't know any different, it's just built into that culture of being able to seamlessly move in between.
Yeah. When you've talked a little bit too about there's a gap, perhaps, at least in the US, in terms of manufacturing capability and being forward thinking, maybe talk a little bit about what that is and how you, along with the help of partnerships from a university, are kind of trying to address that?
Yeah, to me, it does go back to this adoption curve. For us, in the world of research and development, I think many companies are very adept at these digital first approaches. Let's simulate it first. We don't have to do 1,000 lab experiments that fail and spend tons of time and resources. In the world of manufacturing, that is really still untapped. People are very willing to buy 50 new robots, do a demo, install them, and then realize that the algorithm for those robots is not delivering against what a traditional workflow would do. So what we're really doing is teaching manufacturers how to prototype and test fully digitally first, get those good ideas in production fast in a way that they work, they're believable. Also, we got to communicate them to different levels of the organization. So that's sometimes a bigger challenge, is just the communication. Also, somebody might look at something and go, wow, I can't believe that forklift operator's, spinning those pallets around before they, put them on the inbound conveyor. Let's just have them go get one pallet at a time. Well, we can test that digitally and find out, it's about the same as doing 2 pallets at a time and spinning them. So what are we going to do? Go train all of our staff for a 0.1% improvement and run all that change management? No, we can't do that. So testing great ideas and validating them, throwing out bad ideas and getting rid of those. And this is something that, I used to think that everybody, virtually threw potato chips through the air to see how they, moved, in computational fluid dynamics. I used to think that was common until I worked for another company besides Procter & Gamble. And then I was like, oh my gosh, no, So many companies in R&D are already doing these things. In manufacturing, many are not. So really trying to, and that is a much bigger machine than the R&D machine. The R&D machine is, finding out these future revenue streams, but all the cost is in the manufacturing machine, and tons of cost is being wasted. So really having students come in and understand how to move between the digital and the physical world really easily in a manufacturing context, and then see, not be afraid to try some improvements digitally, and then show their manager, wow, this could work, and then create a beautiful rendered animation for free that manager can show their VP and they can make a decision, right? These are some of the things that we're doing and are making big progress in manufacturing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're talking about digital, and we've got Microsoft represented here on the panel, and also you two didn't know each other before this panel, or maybe yesterday, right, to prep a little bit. But then it turns out that there's overlap in things that you're working on, and you're using Microsoft to do some of this work, and Microsoft is seeing how there's benefit in playing in that space. How has that unlocked, and how has just even the commonality of having a university partnership helped make that work better?
Well, I think that, it's First of all, it's an honor to be supporting the work that you all do. I get so excited to hear, even on this trip, to learn about the impact that you're having. And it's amazing that we can play a role in that in a small way in either the compute or the cloud or, or the tools that we provide. That's great. But I think that what is really different about how the way that we're engaging at the University of Cincinnati, and, we engage with a lot of different universities, and sometimes the engagement is with students, sometimes it's with faculty and research, but UC created a space for us to come together, right? So it took some of these mindsets and set up and invested in a space that was strategic. So our group in Cincinnati, we have staff in Cincinnati, but we moved our office into the 1819 innovation space where Procter & Gamble has a presence and other local corporate companies do. And, within a year of being in that space came an opportunity to consider a strategic partnership with this group, University of Cincinnati, of an AI learning lab, this sense of how can we take some of both the work that we're doing, we're often bringing in customers or engaging with folks or engaging with the students, and have it be a central part of this mission that's there. And so what's amazing is that AI Learning Lab, we're about a year into it, but Kinetic Vision is helping bring in and bring alive some of the work that they're doing for hands-on digital learning for students. And we have, and there's some Microsoft ambassadors to the students here. Do you guys want to raise your hands that I got to meet? But there's some ambassadors of students that have come through, and they're both advising the university on digital and how to use AI, and they're giving weekly training for staff and faculty and other students on AI principles. And so I think that element of both, a space that lets us work and work effectively with our customers, but also this ecosystem that allows us to collaborate with others. I'm energized after this to think about what we're going to do when we come back, because not only can we create this lab, but maybe it's a hackathon, maybe it's another learning session where we share perspectives from multiple industries, but there's few places where that really comes together. And so I think that this mindset that was certainly invented by the University of Cincinnati 100 years ago with co-op, still persists as we try and reinvent how we engage today.
Yeah, well, before we came in here, Lee, Ellen, and Ryan, I came at the end of it, but you were talking about an idea for something just like that, right? Of like, hey, what if we did a little hackathon kind of thing?
I think we're going to do like a multi-company. We're just debating on what, but I guarantee you that something good will come out immediately that we'll probably work on at 1819.
Yeah.
So.
Well, why don't we explain a little bit of 1819, what that is? I think that's also, it's just a number to a lot of people in the room probably, right? So, all of you actually have physical presence on campus at the University of Cincinnati in our 1819 Innovation Hub. And, it's a building that was designed to be a connection to industry. And so companies can co-locate there, but also you can partner with them whether you're in the space or not. Maybe you can each talk just a little bit about how your companies use a physical space on campus and why that's different than just having a recruiting relationship.
Yeah, let me just start in the sense that, big company, we work in a certain way. The idea of being scrappy and innovative and collaborating, that's who we are, right? I get so excited, as I am right now, about what people do with the technology that we create, and it helps us build a better product. And so for me, the story of 1890 is more about being a match to that mindset, right? It is, we're constantly trying to drive innovation and impact, and to have a space that allows us to interact in a university setting. And, there's other universities where we're trying other combinations of things too, but when you look across the board, what 1819 has both a physical structure, as the prototyping spaces, as the cultural and community gathering spaces, it so resonates with who we are as a company that there was a natural fit. And I think that also the ability to start small in some ways with a space for our staff, and then for that to lead to other things like I mentioned before, that to me is 1819, is this way that the university is creating a space, showing its culture, but also matching with our own.
Yeah, I think, I love metaphors, and I remember my days in undergrad where things were exploratory and unconstrained, and when we started, growing our Microsoft partnership, and then Microsoft started increasing their investment at the 1819 Innovation Center, Chris came to me and said, "Hey, we got a spare couch. You want to come sleep on the couch?" And so now now we are more tightly integrated, and that created this relationship too. Very serendipitous, where it's very unconstrained, exploratory, and that was unintended. That was just a natural, sort of unintended, organic relationship that grew out of Microsoft saying, "Hey, why don't you come down and share the office with us? Let's see what happens. There's already some small things. Let's grow that." And then for us, there's some more official ways, that we grow the relationship. We started the first student manufacturing boot camp at 1819, and every student that comes to Kinetic Vision to work in manufacturing, they do a boot camp for 2 weeks before they ever come to our campus out at Kinetic Vision. And then I challenged the team and I said, "Hey, we invented this, right, together. Can we open it to other companies?" And so then Cal sent one of their people to it. So I think in addition to the student commercial, we're now getting these kind of commercial connections that remind me more of when I was in college, right? So I think that that's some of the benefits that we're seeing.
Yeah, and you all have a physical space.
And we're kind of the grandparents of this thing.
You are.
More than 15 years ago, before the building existed, we kind of got together with the University of Cincinnati and said, we don't have enough, at that time, I would say digital structural modelers or molecular modelers, and the computing power wasn't great. Nothing was great yet about the digital world, except Microsoft was working on it. But and we said, can we just find a storefront somewhere where we can, we don't need to bring students all the way out to P&G. We can just bring our folks there, have a gathering of really smart students, physicists, mathematicians, engineers, even now business folks. And they can either work for 5 hours on a problem or 5 months on a problem with us, but we just needed more capacity on digital modeling at the time. And so that created the digital accelerator between UC and P&G, and I think inspired a lot of more other companies to do similar. But it's just grown over time to the point where I don't know of many projects within the company that don't tap into it.
Yeah.
So I think over time, there's been 450 students or more working as part of this. And it's always just a hive of activity. What I like about it, maybe different than co-op, this is where instead of embedding somebody, a student with us, they're all together and they're working on all of our problems. So, they're always collaborating and helping each other. So it's a real engine for us.
Well, I think it'd be good to hear from everybody because we do live in an era where physical connection and being in the same place feels less necessary than ever. And there's some interesting trend data out there about people actually now wanting to return back to be in physical presence together. So we are at least seeing some momentum in that direction that would make sense. But I think there's a case to be made, or to hear your thoughts on why in an era where you don't have to physically be in the same building anymore, you would choose to still have a presence on a college campus the way that each of you have.
I don't think there's a substitute. I mean, when I am in the digital accelerator especially, people are still people. They're stuck. They drag somebody over. They're looking at their monitor together or whatever, but there's just this inspiration you can't replace. So I think people choose to do that work with us because of the physical togetherness of it.
Yeah. How about you all?
I think web meetings are incredible. I think Microsoft Teams is incredible. But that type of connection is highly intentional, and we do need intentional connections. When you're collaborating in the physical space, now your intersections can be very unintentional. You're colliding in the hallways, right? You're down next to the 3D printer. Some kind of spark happens and you invent. Invention is all about the unintentional excitement. So that's what I think. And I think that collaboration was killed by COVID. I mean, it really was. And in fact, me and many of the people that I work with are still carrying patterns and damage from that period of our lives. And now we fight to, take those shackles off and really get to a spot where we're unintentionally colliding with each other and coming up with incredible ideas. We do talk about, I do think that AI is a great enablement, but the human species, when it comes to collaboration, still has a very long runway. And so being in a space like that where you are having those unintentional collisions, you're really creating collaboration. We've built friendships and relationships here just by being together and sitting in a awesome Cirrus airplane across the street together, right? And all of that was completely unintentional, right?
Yeah, I think that, we study the future of work seriously. We always had, right? We're a big part of a lot of people's work. Thankful for a compliment on Teams. It's not always guaranteed. I think that we also know that there are remote teams that are just as effective and collaborative as in-person teams. And so I think that we want to make sure to create space that there's worlds for both of those things. But I think that there's also, conditions and environments that are necessary. It has to be intentional, right? I mean, to go from a team that collaborated from being in person and you had all the tools available, all the people and the resources, to something that is remote where you didn't take the time to make sure those are in place, you're going to struggle. That's going to be tough. And so I simultaneously very deeply believe in the meaning of space. I think of anything in the last 10 years that I've seen as we've gone through these changes, both in what the tools enable, but also what, certainly the pandemic, enforced, is that, particularly for people new in their career, entering it into a remote team, your on-ramp is very, very difficult, and your experience and your connection to the company is very difficult. And so I think that there's big questions for employers at how they want to convey that, how they want to build that. Taking that to AI, I think the ultimate ambition of AI, like for us, when we talk about superintelligence, for us, it's humanistic superintelligence, right? When we talk about our ambitions for the future of AI with work, it's about AI in the flow of human ambition. I think that ultimately right now, we're treating AI still a bit like a search engine, right? We're going and we're putting in a prompt, and then the interface is relatively simple in a chat, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that in healthcare, we're learning that, especially the power of ambient computing in an encounter with your healthcare provider is sensational. I mean, if you haven't, hopefully you'll get the experience soon when you come into a visit, but just the ability for somebody to look you in the face, have all those notes be very accurate to you, and then for you to get a summary that you can interpret in those next steps. I mean, if you've ever received a prescription before from a clinician, you're writing it down, and then you get home and then you show up at the pharmacist and you're saying, wait a minute, is this what I ordered? Do I need to consult with the pharmacist? I mean, there's just all these gaps that happen. But when AI is in concert with the way that clinician is delivering care, and the technology is built to really be as much for you as it is for them, it changes things. And I think about 1819 in that mindset too, that here is a space that was built as much for those of us on stage who are looking to both attract talent and engage in what we do in our culture and work, but also in the same way have students feel in control and in driving it and part of their education. I think that's ultimately the magic that we're talking about, and it's something that certainly we're invested in, but I hope to see evolve, whether it's through sparks between us or sparks with the students, that it's a space where those things can really persist.
Yeah. So if we get just really practical, you guys have talked a lot about why the benefits of each different use case, things like that. But just really practically speaking, if someone is here today or listening to this talk later and they want to think about what's a meaningful way to partner with a university to actually design a workforce and not just see it as a place I can come to a career fair, I think you've given good examples about how you've seen that play out. But what would be the advice that you would each give to somebody? And maybe I guess you're giving away your tricks to your competitors here, so just decide how much you want to say. But I would love for you to just let some people know, because that's the whole idea here, right? Is like, how can we actually promote relationships with universities and industry that design a workforce rather than just it being a place that you can come and get a batch of resumes and hope that a few of them work out?
I would say do look for some place a university that has something like a co-op program or something where students can return multiple times, even if it's in the summer. But I truly believe in designing your own workforce versus getting the stack of resumes and, giving some hard tests, which we do. But you like dwell time is really, really successful in finding a place where a student feels like they can succeed and we feel like they can succeed. So, whether it's via a co-op program or something where you can get more serious with a university about more time with a student before the hire and more time for them with you. That's what I would look for, because boy, it's going to save you and them pain, of mismatches in the long run, and just get people at this, vertical startup when they're there.
Okay. Yeah. How about you two? Yeah, for me, it's about blurring the lines, right? Find a program that can blur the lines between academia and business, and get the student, the future workforce and the current workforce colliding more in a way that builds passion, right? We have to do these things for 40 to 60 hours a week, and to have incredible relationships, to invent things that are amazing, we have to have this huge amount of passion. So how can we create an environment where we create those collisions in a way where there's a high amount of collaboration, there's incredible experimentation, you're learning new things that you would never touch before from the business perspective and from the student perspective, and draw them closer and closer together. That creates, sustainable excitement and passion around the work. And that's really, what we want. We don't want to be bored by our jobs. We want to be invigorated. We want to be doing the work of our careers and our lifetimes. So, really look for ways to, through collaboration, build that passion around.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, the other speakers here have shared certainly things I agree with. I think that my guidance to students in the universities is the same, which is to have a vision, right? I think that the days of us feeling as though a student with especially all from the same university with resumes that all look exactly the same, that went through the same workshop as what we want to see, those days are probably gone, right? I mean, I tell you to put them on LinkedIn, but I think that the days of that traditional prep and those things, that these things have shifted. And I think the way for you to discover, to drive some of those things, the great part about design is that it's inclusive. Better design comes from more people involved. And so I think the students, as much as this, are in the future of designing what type of engagement they want to come out of school. I mean, you can even just look at our newer campus that we just built in Redmond. It looks like a university. I think that universities are where people want to be. It's the type of engagement that they want to have. It's a culture of working across disciplines and really trying things. And that those that are senior to you are there to advise you and guide you. I think that there's a lot that we can learn from them. And so by building spaces that allow us to co-design together will help us adapt to all of this. I can tell you technology is going to keep changing, and it has. In a career in AI, I've seen models do tremendous things, but the things that have been unchanged, and we've talked about it, are what creates a competitive advantage, whether for a university or for an employer. And a lot of times that comes down to context, data, and knowledge. It's those three things combined with these models that create these amazing things that really work. And without it, it's why we call it zero shot. You end up in these spaces where things seem really powerful, but as you dig in, it feels less certain. And so I take that same metaphor, even with AI, and apply it to students that have this chance to try something and refine it who they are, and employers that get to include students and do the same thing, and it ends up in this wonderful place. So, have a vision and co-design.
So I have one more question for the panel, and then we're going to turn it over and see if the audience has some questions for you all as well. But for each of you in any particular order, what do you think are going to be, we won't limit you to one, but if you want to do just one, you can. What are going to be the most essential future of work skills? What's going to matter in work? We've got CPG represented, we've got manufacturing, and we've got tech. What are the skills that are going to matter to create the future of work?
I can start. To me, it's, curiosity. I think you have to be curious about things that aren't in your lane. And then the collaboration with the university, I think, creates a platform for curiosity. You can try things without penalty. You can get interested. You can figure out how to bring that into your domain of expertise. And I think that's just, we have to continue. Well, over time, as things grow and, things mature, it's that curiosity that often gets tamped down and stamped out. So we have that's an essential skill. And I think things like, co-op, innovation, co-location and collaboration, those are the things that really build curiosity in the workforce.
Okay, so curiosity. Me too.
Mine might be a little bit more lame. I mean, I agree with curiosity, but I think that right now, responsibility is a really significant thing to consider. And what I mean by that, and I spent a lot of time on trustworthy and responsible AI, but I think there's a real key as these things changing of like owning your experimentation, owning your curiosity and what you're going to do, really, looking at, whether you're building something new, really seek to understand how it impacts others. Right. I think that side of it right now, sometimes it can feel like technology or the changes in career and the future work is happening to us. I think we have a lot more autonomy than we think. And in fact, your results tend to be enhanced by that. And I think that, that again reminds me of my experience as a co-op of starting out and just coming into these people and expecting them to just bestow their wisdom upon me. And instead of me learning everything day one at Cintas where I started, they sent me to the floor and I had to deliver uniforms and mats and clean things. And it was just this sense of just like, you're a part of this new system that you have to figure out how you to deliver value in. And I think that still very much applies today. And I think that as I hear about your careers as well, I think that there are moments that you just took responsibility to create something new and saw it through. And that's just, that's an essential skill that I don't think goes away between college and work.
I think because there's so much access to information and everything is connected to everything, the kind of having the ability to be a systems thinker, for one thing, which is a nerdy way to say it, is super important. But to do that, what we used to call soft skills are not hard skills. I mean, you have to be able to communicate broadly, relate to different kinds of people than you, far different ones. The manufacturing floor, the CEO you bump into in the elevator has to be equally okay to relate to. I think seeing the whole system of wherever you're working in and being able to explain it, understand it, not just to your own peers and maybe engineering or something, but broadly, is going to be critical, and that's really demanding. But people who can think that way and operate that way and communicate that way are going to go really far.
Yeah. So if you partner with the university, finding ways to make sure that
yes,
these are all things that you're going to be able to find in the students that you're connecting with, or the faculty or the research labs, right? I mean, all of those things you just described they're not owned by a specific discipline or college or anything. These are things that can exist in that environment and you can partner and tap into. So, all right, excellent. So thank you for speaking with me about this, but I imagine that there might be some people in the audience who have specific questions too. So my understanding is we've got a microphone there in the middle that is live and ready to take questions. If anyone has questions, feel free to come on up, and we're here. They're here. Come on up. We'll want to hear you. Yeah.
Can you talk to how any of your companies are looking at your existing workforce with the need for the retraining? And by way of context, I have about 450 software engineers who are dying as to whether they're going to have a job, and our company has committed that we're not going to lay off anybody, and we're going to retrain them. So what's the role of a program like this, or the role of universities in kind of mass retraining and workforce modernization?
One of the ways that we're all thinking about upskilling, retraining. Your job tomorrow is not going to be like your job today. And back to the digital accelerator that I talked about, one of the superpowers of that we realized even later is the people that are working with the students in the accelerator are actually getting retrained themselves. because they're encountering kind of the best of the state-of-the-art digital skills, and you can't coach it unless you can do it. So I think this is maybe one thing that we could take more advantage of even, is that kind of get retraining of experienced people, because they're working with teams of digital students, in that context. It's not a formal retraining, but it's a pretty good organic one.
Yeah. Jeremy, you look like...
Yeah, the University of Cincinnati has advanced what used to be a co-op program into an entire college around co-op and professional learning. And so I would say is that they've identified this as an issue, and helping the professional worker, reskill or change their skills or change careers in a different way outside of that undergraduate and graduate context, I think is really important. More pathways for learning and advancement. Alternatively, I will say that, the tools, the technology tools that are coming through today, especially through, neural networks, artificial intelligence, reskilling or upskilling entire workforces is not easy. It's actually impossible, and it really isn't done. You'll have your innovators who want to seek into those new pathways, but really we have to use these great tools to help make the current work they're doing much easier, much faster, more responsible, right? So, to me, that's really one of the keys that I would look at, is how do I not, ask my workers to change what they're doing? How do I ask, Kinetic Vision at Microsoft to show me, how can I keep my workforce doing what they do really well, give them better opportunities, and give them tools that make it easier and faster every day?
Yeah, I'll just add on. I think that there's a lot that we're doing at Microsoft, because we're also constantly changing. You know what I mean? And I think that's both from new tools and new technologies, but also who we serve, both the customers and the people that serve, the impact we have in investors. I mean, I think investors' opinions are changing all the time. So I think for companies itself, you're now in this constant state of change, and I think that you've got to look at yourself a bit and think about how you're equipping your people with access to learn, investment in change management, but also that the mindset of how you procure tools for folks in these solutions, I think sometimes is still trapped in this annual cycle. And I can tell you the tools that we were using 6 months ago are not the tools I'm using today to really maximize what we're doing. And that's a big change. I mean, it feels uneasy as somebody that's been in there, that, that to collaborate or really perform takes some of that different mindset. And I think even on the fundamental side, right, for us, the first agents were weekly newsletters. We're trying to convince people to use it. We're trying to get adoption. And now our automated reports that we build on adoption are every week saying 99% of your team is adopting these tools. And, it still feels like we're struggling, but I think that path is actually, we're making a difference. And so I don't necessarily agree that I don't think the whole workforce can't change. I think that we as a society are all adapting to this change. And I think it's up to employers to think really sincerely about how you're revisiting, how you're equipping people with what they need and giving them access to learn to be able to do that. One of the most effective things isn't something you buy, it's something that you say. It's leaders revealing that they're using these tools or that they are adapting themselves. That permission oftentimes is what helps a lot of folks, try new things and adapt with you.
Yeah, no, well put. Yeah, thank you all for that. Yeah, thank you for your question too. You have another question?
Thank y'all very much for your perspectives. I presume that at some point before y'all were participating in the co-op program that your individual companies ran some kind of cost-benefit analysis on your HR practices and hiring practices that led you towards design over your traditional practices. So just curious from your individual companies, what were the bottom line drivers that led y'all towards considering design over those traditional hiring practices? And if that was a while back, how do you think that has changed in the modern workforce where AI is more common?
Thanks.
For us, it was, small business, probably cheap labor, right? It's hey, can I get a student? I don't have the money to hire somebody, and I got some things that just need to be done. So for us, it was very serendipitous, but that was enabled, through inexpensive experimentation. We weren't afraid to do an experiment. So there was, in some cases, you're going to find if the university really lowered the barrier of entry And so there didn't have to be this cost benefit analysis because the university made the experiment so easy to do that you could just try it and see, and if it didn't work, then you could try something else. So for us, it was, not so much a spreadsheet and that sort of thing. It was more of like, wow, who can I work with, a university partner that just makes this ability to experiment so much easier.
Yeah, I think Microsoft has been around for 50 years. We still feel like a young company, but we're really, getting, pretty seasoned in those ways. I think that our university partnerships are a really important part of how we bring talent in. I think that in this specific case, the university is who had the vision and engaged with us and had, we started out small, but that idea of the AI Learning Lab was really something that was a shared idea. So that was, I give credit to UC on that.
Yeah, 70% of our workforce came through that co-op program. And I think that anybody who looks in an HR department, the cost-benefit analysis of losing an experienced employee and training a new one, it's huge. The cost is huge. So for us, sometimes once we got into it, once we got past that first phase of, let's just get a cheap student, then it became, what is the cost of training somebody new? And it's more of a long-term view. Wow, these students, once they learn here and they're really great cultural fits, they stay for decades. So then we can see, wow, doing some short-term, economic decision to cut the co-op program is like really cutting your long-term ability to grow. And so you have to have a little bit of more of a longer-term view than a shorter-term view.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
First, thank you so much for doing this. I work with a company called IYF, International Youth Foundation, and we're a workforce development engine for young people in lesser communities around the world in over 100 countries. We're currently partnered with Microsoft, now Microsoft Elevate in Africa on a program with Copilot. We use Teams and Copilot extensively, just to say. But just would want to say, we're the connective tissue between corporations, governments, and grassroots organizations all over the world. But my question related to that is, I think that universities for so long have been underutilized by corporations. Like it's like immediate access to youth and energy that has always been there. So to see Procter & Gamble do that is just like amazing to me. And one, I want to know, why isn't it done more? But two, where do you see, like in the future, your new create your own workforce happening outside of university spaces?
Interesting. I don't know why it isn't done more, except that, it's even apparent to me again here now that co-op is less understood than I thought. I think a lot of companies utilize internships for sure. But I'm kind of on a mission to say, like, a lot of universities you see as a leader, but a lot of them do have co-op offerings, and it's just so much better that I hope like people here and virtually hear it from us, because we live it every day. And I wish it was. I hope it's more used in the future. Where else are we? I do think that we do need to keep looking for ways to call it the trades, 2-year programs that maybe lead to 4-year engineering programs or not, to do the same kind of thinking on those things, because in manufacturing and even in R&D, we need skilled tradespeople. I worked a lot of my career in Germany, and it was a lot easier to do. In the US, it's really hard. So I'm looking for programs inspired by what I've seen in co-ops that can also do that for trades, for instance.
I will say, come next door and bring this topic with you, because the university's CCPS college is put in place exactly to do what you were talking about. Take advantage of those non-traditional pathways. And in addition to that, I think collaboration is the key. In Cincinnati, the University of Cincinnati has partnerships with other universities. Xavier, Butler Tech, which is a high school institution, a trades institution, Cincinnati State. And so they're already trying to be a leader and take what they do and reapply it. And that's great because at the university level, we don't need competition. What we need is collaboration and to build up the programs that you're talking about. So I would say, yeah, come next door and talk to us about that.
Thank you very much for the discussion. And I have a question probably for Jeremy. You coined this term and the need to manage sustainable excitement in the work. I'm very curious to know in the context of your activity regarding digital twins and how bringing this may collide in a manufacturing environment with highly skilled workers. What's your take on managing this sustainable excitement on both sides? People in charge of highly skilled traditional ways of operating and people bring a novelty.
Yeah, how much time do we have?
Yeah, I know. That might be a good conversation for next. Oh, so right.
Okay, another plug. So I'll be talking, I think, at 9 tomorrow and 9 the next day, and I can talk a lot about this. I'll touch on it right now. So in the area of, especially in manufacturing and supply chain, which is my focus, and using digital twins there to really improve the operational efficiency, right? You are exactly right. You have this deep subject matter expertise, and then you also have this passion for technology. We have to bring them together. And the great thing is that like in R&D, we've squeezed a lot of the juice out of the orange. In R&D, professionals, they understand these tools. In manufacturing and supply chain, it's newer. And when we introduce to them, wow, look at these ways you can experiment faster, you can get really interesting answers, you can impress your leadership team, they really latch onto it. And so what I've found is that, our biggest issues aren't really about technology. It's about, inside organizations that need to change. They really need some really great ingredients to change. And one is, anybody like me who's a technical expert, I can't walk into a facility and pretend like I can change it with digital tools. It's impossible. It will fail right away. So what I do is I work with these deep experts who understand how the facility runs, how the workers want to work, and we bring them closer and closer together. So you have to have both of those ingredients. And if you can do that in a very disarming way, which takes a skill, right? It's some of these soft skills, then you have a really powerful combination. So whenever I talk to clients who are looking to implement, future factory and digital twin, I say first, you got to de-silo your operations teams and your IT teams, and they have to really be willing to do this. And then you need leaders that are, they've worked in the business for 35 years. They've done every job all the way up. And they have to have some passion about technology. Then you need people on the other side who really understand the technology well, but have passion about learning somebody's business and put them together. So, and sometimes it's about the right people.
Yeah, awesome. So I think the old phrase, you don't have to go home, can't stay here. I think they're going to want us to vacate the room here pretty soon. So I think this is your invitation, right? First of all, thank you again for coming in the first place. Thank you for sticking around, asking questions. We would love to continue these conversations with you. That's why we're here. So if it's not today, anytime this week, please come over and join us in the University of Cincinnati Next Lab, right next door. We do have free coffee, we have snacks, we have Futures Mad Libs, and you can even enter to win a pair of Allbirds sneakers every day. So come on over, chat more with us about these topics, and thank you all again. Thank you to all of our panelists, and thanks to everybody at South by for having us.